October 3rd, 1955, 9:14 p.m., Red Rooster Restaurant, Harlem. The new waiter's hands were shaking when he poured the water, and nobody noticed except Bumpy Johnson, who noticed everything. The man was too clean, his white shirt pressed too sharp, his shoes too new, and he moved like someone who'd practiced the motions but never lived them. When he set down the breadbasket, his jacket shifted just enough to show the outline of a .38 snub-nose resting against his right hip. Bumpy didn't react, didn't look up, just kept cutting his lamb chop with surgical precision, while the man who'd been sent to kill him stood 3 feet away, pretending to straighten the silverware. Across the table sat Vincent the Chin Gigante's cousin, a man named Polly March, who was talking about a shipment, about territories, about percentages, the usual business that kept Harlem's underworld turning. But Bumpy wasn't listening anymore. The waiter had just made his second mistake. He'd glanced at the exit. Twice. To understand what happened that night at the Red Rooster, you need to understand what happened 3 days earlier in a Brooklyn social club where Vincent Gigante sat across from a young enforcer named Danny Torino. Danny was 24 years old, with quick hands and a quicker trigger, having made his bones putting 2 bullets in a union organizer who'd forgotten to pay protection. Clean work, no witnesses, no loose ends, and Gigante liked clean. "You know who Bumpy Johnson is?" Gigante asked, lighting a cigar. "Harlem, numbers, protected," Danny said. "Protected by who?" Danny hesitated. Costello's arrangement. Gigante smiled, though it wasn't a warm smile. Frank Costello is getting old, his arrangements are getting old, and Bumpy Johnson has been sitting on millions in Harlem like it's his personal kingdom. He leaned forward. "I want you to walk into the Red Rooster Friday night. You're going to be a waiter. You're going to serve Bumpy Johnson his last meal. And when he's comfortable, when he's talking, when his back is turned," he made a gun with his fingers. "1 shot, back of the head. Then you walk out the kitchen, get in the car on 138th, and you're in New Jersey before his body hits the floor." Danny nodded. "What about his people?" Gigante's smile disappeared. "Nothing goes wrong. You're a ghost. You don't exist. The Red Rooster has 6 waiters. Nobody will remember which one poured the water." Danny Torino left that meeting $5,000 richer, with a promise of $20,000 more when the job was done. He spent 2 days practicing how to hold a tray, how to pour wine, how to move through a crowded restaurant without drawing attention. He bought a waiter's uniform from a costume shop in Queens and studied the layout of the Red Rooster from the outside, counting exits, timing the flow of service. What Danny Torino didn't know was that Bumpy Johnson had known about the hit for 72 hours. September 30th, 3 days before the Red Rooster. A man named Julius sat in Bumpy's office above Small's Paradise. Julius was a janitor at Gigante's social club in Brooklyn, the kind of man who emptied trash cans, mopped floors, and polished tables, while powerful men talked as if he wasn't there. Nobody noticed Julius, and that was his value. "Gigante's bringing in someone new," Julius said quietly. "Young guy, Italian. They called him Danny." "What's the job?" Bumpy asked. "You, Friday night, Red Rooster. The kid's going in as a waiter." Bumpy was silent for a long moment, then opened his desk drawer, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to Julius. $500. "You didn't see anything. You weren't here." "Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson." After Julius left, Bumpy made 2 calls. The first was to Polly March. "Friday night, Red Rooster, 9 p.m. We're having dinner." "What are we talking about?" "Doesn't matter, just be there." The second call was to the owner of the Red Rooster, a man named Clayton who'd owed Bumpy his life since 1947, when Bumpy made a police brutality charge disappear. "Friday night," Bumpy said. "You're going to have a new waiter. Young, Italian, nervous. Let him work." Clayton was confused. "You want me to hire someone?" "No, he's already hired by someone else. Just let him do his job." "Bumpy, I don't understand." "You don't need to. Just make sure table 12 is ready." And Clayton, "Yes, whatever happens, keep your staff in the kitchen." October 3rd, 1955, 8:47 p.m. Danny Torino walked into the Red Rooster through the back entrance, wearing his waiter's uniform, carrying a notepad, and moving with practiced confidence. Clayton looked up from the register. Danny's heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. This was it. He walked into the dining room where the Red Rooster was full, maybe 60 people, with jazz playing softly from a corner stage and the air thick with the smell of bourbon, fried chicken, and cigars. And there, at table 12 in the back corner, sat Bumpy Johnson, exactly as Danny had been told. Short, maybe 5'9", wearing a dark blue suit and white shirt with no tie, his fedora resting on the chair beside him, his face calm and almost bored as he listened to Paulie March talk. Danny approached the table, his right hand brushing against the .38 under his jacket. "Not yet. Serve first, establish routine, then move." "Good evening, gentlemen," Danny said, his voice steady. "Can I start you with something to drink?" Bumpy looked up, and for just a second, their eyes met. Danny felt something cold run down his spine, because Bumpy's eyes weren't angry or suspicious. They were knowing. "Bourbon," Bumpy said quietly. "Neat. And a glass of water." "Same," Paulie added. Danny wrote it down, turned and walked toward the bar, his hands shaking now. 9:03 p.m. Danny returned with the drinks and set them down carefully, while Bumpy didn't look at him. "Ready to order?" Danny asked. "Lamb chops, medium rare, collard greens, cornbread," Bumpy said. "Steak, well done," Paulie added. Danny nodded and walked away. In the kitchen, he stood by the service window and checked his watch. 9:05 p.m. Gigante had told him to wait until Bumpy was eating, relaxed, distracted. At 9:14, Danny picked up the plates and walked back to table 12, setting Bumpy's lamb chops in front of him and Paulie's steak across the table. Bumpy cut into the meat, took a bite, chewed slowly. This was the moment. Danny's hand moved toward his jacket, and then Bumpy spoke without looking up. "The breadbasket." Danny froze. "Sir? You forgot the breadbasket." Danny's throat went dry. I'll get it right now." "No need." Bumpy set down his fork. "Sit down." The room seemed to tilt. "I'm sorry," Danny whispered. Bumpy looked up, his face perfectly calm. "I said, sit down." Paulie March went pale. He knew what this meant. Danny's hand was still near his jacket, near the .38, but something in Bumpy's eyes stopped him cold. "I'm working." "You're not working. You're here to kill me, so stop pretending and sit down." The entire Bumpy cut another piece of lamb, chewed, swallowed, then looked at the young man sitting stiffly across from him. "What's your name?" "Danny." "Danny what?" "Torino." Bumpy nodded. "Italian. Brooklyn?" "Yes." "Who sent you? Gigante?" Danny didn't answer. Bumpy smiled. "You don't have to say it. I already know. Gigante's been trying to move into Harlem for 2 years. He thinks Frank Costello's getting soft, thinks the old arrangements don't matter anymore." He took a sip of bourbon. "So he sent you, a kid with a gun and a waiter's uniform." Danny's jaw tightened. "I'm not a kid." "How old are you?" 24. "You ever kill anyone before?" Danny hesitated, then nodded. "How many?" "1. Up close? Yes. Bumpy leaned back in his chair. Let me tell you something, Danny. Killing one man doesn't make you a killer. It makes you someone who killed once. You think you can walk into my restaurant, put a bullet in my head, and walk out? That was the plan. It was a bad plan. Paulie March was sweating now, his eyes darting between Bumpy and the door. Bumpy kept his gaze on Danny. Do you feel that gun under your jacket? Danny blinked. What? Pull it out. Let's see it. Slowly, Danny reached into his jacket and pulled out the .38 snub-nose without pointing it, just holding it, while Bumpy looked at the weapon like it was a toy. Do you know what that gun is worth in this room? Bumpy asked quietly. Nothing, Danny whispered. Why? Because you already knew I had it. That's right. Bumpy leaned forward. I've known about you for 3 days, Danny. I know Gigante sent you. I know he promised you 25 grand. I know you practiced being a waiter in some apartment in Queens. Danny's face went white. I let you walk in here. I let you serve me. I let you get close. You know why? Danny shook his head. Because I wanted to see if you'd do it. The words hung in the air like smoke. And? Danny asked, his voice barely audible. And you didn't. Danny looked down at the gun in his hand. I still can. No, you can't. Why not? Bumpy gestured to the room. Because the moment you point that gun at me, 8 people in this restaurant will put you down before you pull the trigger. You think you're the only one armed in here? Danny glanced around the room, which looked the same as before, with people eating, talking, laughing. But now he saw it. The man by the bar had his hand inside his coat. The woman in the red dress near the stage had a clear line of sight to table 12, and the busboy refilling water glasses was standing too close, too ready. Danny Torino had walked into a trap, and the trap had been open the whole time. Put the gun on the table, Bumpy said. Danny did. Bumpy picked it up, checked the cylinder, then slid it into his own jacket. Now let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to finish your shift tonight. You're going to walk out the back door at 11. There's going to be a black Cadillac waiting on 138th Street. Danny's eyes widened. That's Gigante's car. I know. Get in. And then you tell Gigante exactly what happened here. You tell him Bumpy Johnson knew. You tell him I let you live. And you tell him, Bumpy's voice dropped, if he ever sends someone into my neighborhood again, I won't tip them. I'll bury them. Danny was shaking now. He'll kill me for failing. Maybe. Or maybe he'll realize I just gave him a message without starting a war. That's up to him. Bumpy pushed the $100 bill across the table. Take the tip, Danny. You earned it for sitting down when I told you to. At 11:03 p.m., Vincent Gigante walked out the back door of the Red Rooster and found the black Cadillac waiting. He got in, and Gigante was in the back seat, smoking a cigar. Is it done? Danny shook his head. Gigante's face darkened. Why not? He knew. He knew everything. For a long moment, Gigante said nothing, then turned to look out the window at Harlem's streets glowing under the streetlights. What did he say? Danny repeated Bumpy's message word for word, and when he finished, Gigante was silent, then laughed quietly, bitterly. He tipped you? $100. Gigante shook his head, then tapped his cigar against the ashtray. He said nothing for a long moment, just stared out the window. He leaned forward and told the driver, take us back to Brooklyn. As the car pulled away, Gigante looked at Danny one more time. You're lucky, kid. Bumpy Johnson just saved your life. Don't waste it. Danny Torino never worked for the mob again. 3 days later, Vincent Gigante met with Frank Costello in a restaurant in Little Italy, and Costello said, "I heard you made a move on Harlem," while cutting into his veal. "I didn't make a move," Gigante said carefully. "I sent a message." "And what did it say?" "That Harlem isn't for sale. Not now, not ever." Costello nodded slowly. "Then we leave it alone." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Costello looked up. "You know why Bumpy Johnson is still alive, Vincent? It's not because he's the toughest. It's not because he has the most guns. It's because..." Bumpy Johnson never spoke about the night Danny Torino walked into the Red Rooster, but word spread anyway. By the end of the week, every mob crew from Boston to Miami had heard the story about the man who tipped his own assassin, the man who let a killer sit at his table and walk away. Within 6 months, every piece of territory Gigante had considered taking in Harlem remained untouched. The families made deals when they needed to, negotiated when it made sense, but nobody sent soldiers north of 110th Street, not because they couldn't, but because the cost of trying had already been made clear by a $100 bill placed on a table in front of a man holding a loaded gun. Danny Torino disappeared after that night. Some said he went west. Others said he changed his name and worked construction until his hands forgot what it felt like to hold a weapon. Nobody knows for certain, but in 1971, a newspaper ran a small obituary for a Daniel Torres who died in a workplace accident in Nevada, and the age matched. The Red Rooster stayed open for another decade, and Table 12 was never reserved, never claimed, but on Friday nights it was always left empty until exactly 9:14 p.m., and then the staff would set it for 2. Most weeks nobody sat there, but sometimes late at night when the restaurant was full and the music was loud and Harlem felt like it would never change, an older man in a dark suit would walk in without speaking and sit in the back corner with his fedora on the chair beside him. He would order lamb chops medium rare, and he would eat alone while the room moved around him like water around a stone. And when he left, he always tipped exactly $100.